special, amazing guest. Well, I think I hate it when that happens. Okay, let me start over. Hey, it's Whitney from EcoVeganGal.com, and welcome back to the weekly Q&A. I have a very special guest with me today and a really wonderful topic that so many people are interested in, and I can't wait to jump into that. But first, just in case you are brand new to these Q&As, let me give you a quick breakdown on them. Number one, you can watch these live every Saturday, or you can watch the recording anytime you want on YouTube. If you're watching the recording right now, you can actually skip past this intro if you've already heard it. Just look in the description field down below. And that's really neat because you can actually go forward to any different section that you want in this video. There's different time codes. Just click on them. It'll bring you forward so you don't have to watch the entire thing if you don't have time. Speaking of time, a lot of people like to listen to these instead of just sitting there and watching. Whatever your preference is, I know people like to listen to them while they're cleaning the home or working out or just driving in their car. They'll play it, they'll plug it into their car system. So yes, these are long, but they are jam-packed with information. And again, there's something for everyone here depending on how you want to absorb it, whether you want to skip forward or you want to listen to every moment of it. And for those of you watching the live recording, it's really neat because you can interact with me and my wonderful guest today. And here's how to do that. You interact through Google+, and you can find the link to this event in 3 different ways. One is if you go to google.com/+EcoVeganGal and then click on the event link. Then when you open up the event and the hangout that's happening right now, there's a section on the side called the Q&A app, and that allows you to write in your questions, leave comments, however you want to interact. Then, if you're having trouble finding that link, you can go and find it at the Facebook, EcoVeganGal Facebook, just facebook.com/EcoVeganGal, or twitter.com/EcoVeganGal. The links are up there for you if you're not sure. You may be watching this right now on YouTube. I do want to remind you that I can't see your questions if you comment on YouTube watching live. So when you're watching live, you have to go through Google+, unfortunately. But when you're watching the recording, I really encourage you to comment below. I do want to say one last thing about questions, though, is comments are wonderful on YouTube, but for questions, because they come up so much in all these different videos, I really want to make sure that I get to your questions for these Q&As, and they're actually all compiled from a special link that's in the description field. So all the questions we're going to get to before we get to the live questions are been collected from years and years. In fact, many of the questions from today are from like 2012 for whatever reason. That was a popular year for this topic, and people submitted them through the link right down below in the description field, so you can do that too. So as a summary, if you're watching live, ask your questions and leave comments on the Google+ app. If you're watching the recording, leave comments, join the conversation on YouTube, and ask your questions in the description field down below. Sound good? I'm sorry it's a little confusing, but that's just the way it works, and I hope it's clear. Trust me, if you're unsure about it, you will get on board. I have lots of people that have figured out the system as the time goes on every Saturday. Okay, and for no further ado, let's jump right into the fantastic topic that is today. And we're going to be talking all about loving your body, finding your ideal weight. So whether you're looking to lose weight, gain weight, or maintain your weight, we're going to be talking about how to do that in a healthy way. And this is such a huge topic. I receive a ton of questions. This is conversations everywhere in all aspects of our lives. People are always very concerned with their body image. Either they don't feel comfortable in their skin, or they want to feel more comfortable, and they don't feel like their body is quite right, but they don't know how to do it in a way that maintains it, right? A lot of people are very good at putting on or taking off weight, but then, you know, one little maybe diet or system that you use is not working long term. So my fantastic guest today is Talia Fuhrman, who wrote a phenomenal book that just came out this month, September 2014, called Love Your Body. So with no further ado, let me introduce this wonderful woman. Talia, tell us a little bit about yourself and your history and what led you to read this book or write this book.
This book was a product of, as you said, years and years of not loving my body. I I I think it's important to realize that we all go through periods of, especially when we're a teenager, growing up, we're uncomfortable in our own skin, and going through that time period myself, and then getting out of it and feeling not only confident in my body, but also learning that eating a healthful diet and just overall living a healthy lifestyle was the key to not only physically looking attractive and finding your healthy weight, but also feeling confident in yourself and getting healthy and preventing diseases long term. So I found that through my own insecurity, I was able to kind of like give my own life a makeover inside and out.
And you don't have to say how old you are, but you are quite young, and so people might be wondering, what is your history? Because you are a college graduate and you've done a lot of studying. So what is your background educationally on this topic?
Absolutely. I did go to Cornell University, and my degree is in nutrition, but I took every psychology class offered at the university while I was there. So, but my whole life, I basically was given nutrition from my dad. My dad is Dr. Joel Fuhrman. And so basically before I could learn to read or write, he would be like, did you eat your kale with cashew cream sauce today, honey? Like, you can't have that cookie. Do you know what's in that? And I remember going through a phase when I was in middle school, and I went through the rebellious phase first, but then I did a 180, and then I decided I needed to tell all my friends what was in their food and why they shouldn't eat it. And I was do you know that there's partially hydrogenated oil in that donut you're about to eat? So I lost a lot of friends when I was younger. But yeah, basically my entire life, my dad taught me about nutrition, and then that garnered a desire to keep reading other authors like John Robbins and T. Colin Campbell, and then also about the environment with Jane Goodall, and it just kind of like sparked a desire to learn as much about the health of the human body, the health of the planet, and animals, just through my own father and seeing the enormous power to heal people through his own job.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, to have a father that's so influential. For those of you unfamiliar with Joel Fuhrman, he really has helped so many people learn how to eat well and understand nutrition. So it's kind of a must read, or listening to one of his talks. You can find him on YouTube. So look him up and find some more information about him. It's really inspiring. And I think it's really wonderful, Talia, that you're kind of creating, you're part of that legacy that he's created, but you're doing it in a different way because you're younger and you're a woman, so you can kind of speak to it from a different angle, and together you guys are amazing, right? You can create such an impact with individually and combined. So thank you so much for everything that you're putting out to the world. I think it's just the beginning with this book. She also has a phenomenal website that is such a great resource, and we'll talk more about that. But let's jump right into the questions to get to the crux of this conversation here. So we have broken it down. I have compiled, I don't even know how many questions here, but I went through and I started searching through my database of questions of anybody talking about weight, body image, and kind of the nutritional aspects that touch upon that. So we've grouped it in together into different categories here. Number one, I really want to start off with people that have trouble losing weight, because that's kind of like one of the biggest things here, one of the biggest concerns that people have. So why not jump into that? And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions here that are all basically around that same topic. So let me summarize them. The first one came from Chloe, who said that since going vegan, she's found that she actually gained quite a bit of weight, and she thinks it's because of the increased amount of food that she was eating. She found that she wasn't feeling satisfied even though she's eating foods high in fiber, and she's wondering if we have any particular foods or way of eating or advice for her. She really wants to lose the weight that she's gained and feel healthier on the vegan diet without feeling deprived. Kelly had a similar question, and she found that once she went vegan, she actually gained around 30 pounds and has never weighed this much in her life, and the weight just won't come off, even though she's eating quite healthy, walking 45 minutes to an hour a day, and is concerned that she actually has to give up her vegan diet because of this, because she feels weak, she's constantly hungry, and she also feels fat. Shannon has said that she's a new vegan and eating about 1,600 to 1,700 calories per day. Actually has 100 pounds to lose, so she's got a kind of that's a bigger goal there than the 30 pounds, right? And hasn't found that she's lost any weight through the vegan diet. It seems like she came to the vegan diet to lose weight, and she's working out 4 to 5 times a week with a personal trainer. Again, curious, why isn't she losing weight? Shannon is a 39-year-old mother of 3 and has been eating vegan for a little over a month and has only dropped a couple of pounds, so wondering how to move things around. She wants to get more towards 10 pounds. Adrian wants to go vegan but is kind of gaining weight through the process, and she's been eating things like tofu dogs, veggies, mixed beans, avocados, wheat bread, tofu, turkey, hummus, apples, and she's having withdrawals from wanting to eat meat and dairy. Julie said that she's been on a plant-based diet for a few months and hasn't made a ton of progress. She's found that the only way that she's been able to lose weight in the past was to eat about 1,200 calories a day, which she didn't find sustainable, and so she's not making a lot of progress. And lastly, Kendra is a type 1 diabetic who's gaining weight, which she thinks is very rare, and she's wondering if a plant-based diet is safe for her. So that's kind of a broad range, a lot of information there, but if we look at it as a whole, we find that all of these women here are finding that they're gaining weight on the vegan diet. And I think it's such an interesting topic because a lot of people are drawn to the vegan diet because they think it's going to be a weight loss solution. So we can, if you want me to remind you, you have the notes there too, Talia, but maybe we can touch upon all those different topics there and summarize it together. What do you see going on here, and do you find that it's common for people to gain weight on the vegan diet, and why?
I would say that I'm going to grab some of my father's work here and say that he preaches that our long-term health is related to the amount of nutrients, micronutrients like vitamins and minerals we eat per calorie, and these foods that contain the most nutrients also tend to contain the most fiber and the highest water content and volume. So we want to be able to eat lots of food in one meal, feel satisfied, and feel that our stomach actually is filled up to capacity, so that way we don't crave eating more food than we already have in our stomach, but we're also not consuming that many calories. So when you think like fruits and vegetables, they contain all of that fiber and volume. We're able to fill up, and we're also not going to gain a lot of weight because they're so low in calories. And then we're also not going to, our bodies are not going to feel hungry because we actually have the nutrients that our cells need to thrive. So there's a big difference between a junk food vegan, eating those, processed foods like tofu dogs and all of that, those goodies like cakes and things that maybe contain a lot of sugar. You can be a vegan and be eating lots of oil and white flour and process, there's a huge difference between eating an enormous salad or a warm super stew with like chia seeds and flax seeds. And I am not an advocate of a low-fat vegan diet. There's a range that of fats that we can get away with eating depending on how much we exercise and what our goals are, but not eating any fats like avocados or nuts and seeds will actually reduce our odds of losing weight. That's something that I talk about in the book, but our brains run on fat, our cells run on healthy fat. So we have to throw this notion of avoiding fat out the window. So, and sometimes eating a big salad with a nut-based dressing, like my dad is so good at creating these healthy, delicious nut-based dressings, actually increases the absorption of the nutrients in the salad because some of the vitamins are fat-soluble vitamins, and we need, it works so well that way. So I would say start eating more plants and less processed foods, avoiding the grains as much, and those overly processed soy products. There's a big difference between products that contain soy protein isolate and unprocessed soy like tempeh, tofu, and edamame. So
Yeah.
for less processed and more natural.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point, and maybe well, one of the most common things talked about in this lifestyle is there's a big difference between just eating vegan and eating plant-based. So the word plant-based generally refers to eating whole foods, unrefined foods, and that's why you'll see that term. A lot of people actually see them as very different things. Vegan is like no animal products, which could include oils and all this processed stuff and all these faux meats and faux dairies, and then the difference between that and plant-based is the plant-based are focusing on the whole foods, the vegetables and the fruits and the legumes, nuts, seeds, and all of that, where you can still feel very satisfied, as you said, with these great dressings and these flavorful dishes, with things like spices and all that. And I think it's really important to look at it. And I, over the years, have become very careful when I use the word vegan versus when I use the word plant-based. Because the veganism is really also encompassing a lifestyle. Some people that eat plant-based may still use leather, may still use animal products in their life. So I think it's really important to get clear on what those two mean. And I've noticed with people like your father and yourself, Talia, that there's a much bigger emphasis on the plant-based living, right? So maybe it should be vegan lifestyle with a plant-based diet. Sounds like that might be more of the solution to living healthy and losing weight.
And my dad likes the term a nutritarian, which means that you eat for nutrient density. So you can still be a plant-based vegan. That's what I am. I don't eat any animal products, but I also eat the nutritarian way.
Yeah.
So it's really, there's health, and then there's all the other ethical reasons that accompany it. And I found that once you become a vegan for, let's say, ethical reasons, you become more interested in health, or let's say you become a vegan for health reasons, and then you become more interested in the environment and animals. So it's like this whole beautiful discovery process of just living a better life overall.
Yes. Now, do you find that there is any correlation between even the plant-based diet and gaining weight? I mean, for those people that want to lose weight, is there any other reason why they might be struggling, even if let's just say they are eating a lot of whole foods? Could be anything else be getting in the way?
Definitely possible, especially when you're first making the transition. There's something called toxic hunger, and that's when you're detoxing and you're used to eating the conventional American diet, or even a vegan diet in which you're eating junk foods that are overly processed, is your body isn't in tune to its actual caloric requirements. And so you might be eating when you're not hungry. You might feel your stomach growling when you actually don't physiologically need more calories. And I'm getting into the science of my dad's work a little bit here, but it's that we need to get in touch with our true hunger, and that's a mouth and throat sensation. And so it's really important that if you're transitioning to a healthier diet, that you give your body some time to adapt, eating more plants, higher quantity of nutrients, and then over time you'll get more in touch with the amount of calories you require, and then you can stop eating when you're satiated and eat when you're truly hungry and your body truly needs more calories as fuel. Because at the end of the day, we eat because we need fuel. So that is another gift of eating a nutritarian diet, is that we're able to consume the amount of calories that our bodies require, and that's a part of finding our ideal weight.
Yes, absolutely. That is a phenomenal point there. And the next few questions I want to address are all about calories, which we can touch more upon that. So I think that this really helps answer a lot of these questions here. It seems like a lot of new vegans are having trouble, so that toxic hunger is a really great thing to look at there. How about feeling satisfied for people that, feel like, I mean, does that kind of still address that same issue of when you're transitioning and not feeling satisfied because you're not used to it? Or do you have any other tips for that, for making sure people are satiated?
I think I think it's we like eating a lot. We like eating big meals. We like to feel like we can keep on eating and eating more, and we're not going to gain weight. We just eating is so pleasurable. So again, like eating a big, huge salad or lots of raw vegetables with whatever meal you're having. Like I love vegetable burgers. I love like lentil loaves and just there's so many plant-based dishes, soups and stews, but I eat everything with a ton of raw greens. So if I'm having that bean burger, I'll even put some, like, let's say Daiya cheese, which just a little bit. It's not the healthiest thing in the world, but it makes the meal tastier. But I'll eat that with a huge amount of raw leafy greens or kale or something. It's just it might sound scary to do this at first because I know a lot of people don't like the bitter taste of green vegetables, but there's so many raw vegetables that you can eat. You can eat bell peppers. Just the more vegetables you eat with your meal, you're able to consume more, and then you'll feel satiated. And the same goes with fruits and vegetables. I often end my meal with a huge apple, a huge orange, or melon, or something that is low in calories, but I can still eat a lot of. And I love to end my meals with something sweet. So maybe after I've eaten a stew or huge salad, I'll have a square of dark chocolate or a date or something, just because that's how I like to cut off my meal and say no more food for you for the night.
Yeah, that's great. I think, and just coming back to that issue, that idea of eating a lot of fibrous foods that have a lot of water in them, the more, you can eat a ton of that, but you're going to feel very satiated and full. Whereas if you're eating processed foods that don't have the fiber in them, you can eat and eat and eat and not feel satisfied from them. So really focusing in on those nourishing, fiber-rich foods is huge. The other, just to wrap up this topic here, there was 2 points that I wanted to make. Do you feel like there's kind of a timeline for when people start to see progress in terms of losing weight? Like, it sounds like a lot of these people are feeling frustrated because they're not losing weight fast enough. Do you see kind of like trends, or is it going to depend from body to body? Like, how does somebody know if they're making progress that is what's the word I'm looking for? They're making good progress versus no progress or very slow progress.
The healthiest way to lose weight is on the slower side. A pound a week is what they say, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight, and unless you're doing it in an unhealthful way. I would say if you're going, it also depends on the degree of transformation. If you're going 100% into this, then probably a few weeks you're going to notice a substantial difference. I would say definitely you need to stick with it for at least 2 to 3 weeks to notice a change in the physical appearance of your body if you're going to do it healthfully.
Right. Great. Yeah, I think also to throw in there, we'll probably touch upon this a few times today, but I find that a lot of people that are struggling to lose weight might be taking in calories from sources that they're not even aware of, like oil. So we can talk more about oil a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of start that conversation. Do you consider oil part of a healthy diet, and do you think that oil can get in the way of people losing weight? So we're talking like oil in salad dressings, oil in your cooking, oil, in your chips or whatever, anywhere that it might sneak in.
Absolutely. So all oils, even coconut oil, contains 120 calories per tablespoon. A tablespoon of oil is like nothing. So it's so high in calories and has a minuscule amount of minerals and vitamins. And I've analyzed the amount of minerals in oil in the past, and comparing that to the amount in any plant food, and it's the amount of nutrients is just insignificant. So thank you for bringing this up. Coconut oil is something that has been raved about in the media, and it's really not a health food if you actually analyze its nutrient composition and caloric quantity as well.
Yeah, I feel like, for me, it's always been kind of a journey of figuring that out, because it seems to be one of the healthier oils in terms of smoke point and things that's maybe better than using something like olive oil. But recently I've really been thinking about oil. Well, I think about it a lot over the past 3 years, but recently I started reflecting on all the ways that I kind of have a few things here and there with oil in them, and it really adds up fast. So I think a lot of people might be consuming oils in ways that they're not even that aware of. They might not cook it with themselves, but if they eat out, or if they eat anything that's packaged, or veggie burgers, sometimes they're just made with it, and it's kind of all over the place. So there might be calories sneaking in, which is a nice transition into our next topic. But I do want to go real quickly. Do you think that the plant-based diet is safe for a type 1 diabetic who is gaining weight?
Well, I did want to finish the oil, the question first, and say that I want to remind people that this does not have to be all or nothing. I don't want anybody to develop an eating disorder like orthorexia, where it's like you're panicking that like everything little thing that you're eating needs to be pure and perfect, when in actuality I do have a little bit of oil in my life, and it just happens. I don't panic about it, and I just try to minimize it as much as possible. I'll spray a pan if I'm cooking with like healthy oil-free, quote-unquote oil-free muffins. I won't add any oil to the actual muffin recipe, but if I have to like spray a little bit of my oil to the pan and then make sure it's very minimal, I'll do that. So just a reminder to say that we don't want to go crazy with veganism. That's a big thing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the type 1 diabetes question, that's I would say that's a bit of a tricky question, and each person who has type 1 diabetes is different. I think that's a medical question, and I can get what is good for one person tends to be not this not completely the same advice, but in general, the more nutrient dense, the more nutritarian diet we have, the better for any health problem.
Yes, wonderful. All right, well, let's move on to the calorie question, because there are two really solid questions on this. One came from Alyssa, who said that ever since she transitioned to veganism from being a vegetarian, she feels extremely hungry, and we kind of touched upon this. She's eating mostly fruits and vegetables, 60% raw, trying to stay away from gluten, soy, and over-processed foods, but she is worried that she's going to gain weight from this and finds that she's more hungry than not. She drinks tons of water, has a regular yoga practice, so it sounds like she's doing a lot of healthy things, but is still concerned. So because she also has a lot of exercise, including walking in her life, she's wondering, should she eat whenever she wants, however much she wants, as long as it's a healthy choice and not for her appetite alone, or should she try and decrease her caloric intake for a more effective way of losing weight? So that's a really great topic there. And then to go along with that one, there's a question from Rachel. Rachel's on a weight loss journey, has been faithfully tracking her calories. She's been sticking to about 1,800 calories a day, as well as 5 miles of exercise daily. But when does high-calorie healthful food take over caloric daily consumption? So very similar question there. Meaning, can you kind of eat as much as you want as long as it's healthy, or do calories still count even when you're eating healthy? How is that going to apply to your overall health, but also your ability to maintain or lose weight? And kind of the rule of thumb she's looking for is high-calorie healthy foods versus caloric intake. I love this question.
It's a fantastic question, and calories do matter at the end of the day. If we're eating too many meals, if we're not in tune with our what we actually require, then we're gonna gain weight. I actually can share a personal experience. I moved to Southern California. The amount of plant-based treats here, unfriggin-leavable. It was just like heaven. And for a little while there, I would eat too much. I would go to a raw vegan restaurant and have their dessert. I was going crazy. I was definitely overeating, and I gained a few pounds, and then I realized I had to take a step back. So you can't go scot-free in life, and that's with eating as well. So calories still matter, but the more like beans you eat, the more plants you eat, you'll feel full. You won't feel hungry. You won't feel like you need to keep on eating. I think that there's a huge transition from people don't realize when they actually do eat a nutrient-dense plant-based diet that they're not going to want to eat more food. They're going to have so much energy. They're going to want to start living. They're going to want to start exercising. I think that the cravings to snack on chips or whatever it is, it goes away. You don't want more food.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about in terms of for both of them, they're exercising a lot, walking, yoga, etc. Obviously, your caloric intake is not just going to depend on your body, but it's going to depend on how much you're outputting, right? So how do you kind of know how many calories to eat based on your exercise routine?
Right. So let's say we're on the elliptical machine for, I don't know, a half hour. You burn 250 more calories. You're going to feel hungrier. You're going to eat a nice big meal. So you don't have to be perfect at every meal, knowing the exact amount of calories you require at that meal. You're going to eat a healthy meal. After the meal, you're going to start living your life again, and then your body is going to tell you when it's hungry again. If at the next meal you'll eat. I think the most important thing is becoming in sync with how much food and your body actually requires, and you don't have to be 100% perfect counting calories at every meal. I do not count calories. I don't advocate counting calories. I advocate being in touch with your own body and how satiated it feels.
Right. Absolutely. And I think it's important. It takes time actually to get in touch with your body and know what that. I mean, it's taken me like so long, and I still feel like it's always kind of that daily tune-in where I have to really listen. And for me, I found that really spending my time enjoying my food, like chewing is so important for our health, for our digestion especially. When I kind of slow down my eating and really think about it, maybe plan my meals so I know what I'm going to eat as opposed to panicking, that to me is a really great way to get in touch with yourself and understand how you feel. I've also had huge success. Some of these questions came as a result of a video I put up a few years ago about my weight loss experience. I didn't realize that I was sensitive to gluten and soy, and now I've found a lot of other foods, and it was really amazing when I discovered that, because suddenly I heard my body in a new way. Before, when I first went vegan 11 years ago, it was like Talia was saying here, you've got this new way of life and you're trying to figure it out, and you're transitioning from eating meat and dairy, and you think, okay, well, I want to feel satisfied, I want to stick to this diet, so I'm going to eat tons of veggie burgers so I don't miss the old stuff, and I'm going to have tons of milk and cheese and ice cream, and you find yourself kind of like almost trying to have a fail-safe, because you don't want to go back to the old way. At least that's how I felt. So I was eating all these processed foods, and then that excitement period comes up where suddenly I went from feeling like I didn't have a ton of options to, especially when I moved to Los Angeles, it was like options galore and restaurants, and over the years just more and more and more products came up, and that excitement of, oh, I have to try this, I want to eat this, I want to experience it. And I wasn't really in tune with my body, but I felt horrible. I felt bloated. I felt like I had gained a lot of weight, or my weight was coming back because I lost it initially, and then it started to come back. And it really wasn't until a friend of mine encouraged me to try eating gluten-free for a week. I did, and I just kind of naturally stuck to it. And it was just like a curiosity, and I had a major reduction in my weight because apparently I'm very sensitive to it. I've actually never been tested, but I notice a huge difference in how I feel and how I look when I eat gluten. And a lot of people, this subject has been so huge in the media recently because research has come out to say that gluten sensitivity isn't real and all of that, and I definitely advocate for people just trying things out and seeing how they feel. My point is, is about tuning in. So personally, when I tune into my body, I don't feel good eating gluten. I also don't feel good eating most types of soy, even a lot of legumes. Try as I might, I haven't figured out how to eat legumes without feeling, bloated or having digestive issues. It's really frustrating. And I guess my whole point here is over the past 4 years, the more I've really just noticed how I feel after I eat certain foods, the easier it is for me to understand when I thrive, when I feel really good on foods. And it took me a while to learn that, but I would encourage everyone, just slow down, have simple meals, and then just see how you feel after them. If you feel really great, keep eating those foods. But if you can narrow down to certain foods that you don't feel that great on, then you might want to eliminate them or greatly reduce them. And to me, that's where you also start to understand how many calories you need, right? Do you feel energized? Do you feel tired? Do you feel hungry? Do you feel extra full? Do you, bloated? Do you have digestive issues? All of these different things. Unfortunately, each of us has to kind of figure out for our own. There's no, one way to do it, right? And I think that a lot of people always ask me about that experience, so I want to share that with just tuning in is, to me, one of the keys to thriving, but also figuring out what your ideal weight is. And that same goes with the calories.
That's a great point, Whitney. I think there can be a subtle difference between eating a huge salad and how that makes you feel versus eating the salad with a piece of whole grain bread and seeing how your body reacts.
Yes.
I would recommend, let's say you're scared of eating beans and your body normally doesn't handle them well. Well, I recommend adding even just a few tablespoons or just a little bit to the meal, and your body can slowly adapt to eating the healthy food. So sometimes it's just your body isn't used to eating the healthy food, and you need to give it time, and you can gradually eat more and more of the, let's say in this example, beans, than your body was able to before. So
Yes.
it's in the science of nutrition and understanding what's inside each food that makes them so beneficial, and then incorporating them into your diet and making them taste delicious because they're so nutritious.
Yes.
And I am a huge fan of the work of not only my dad, I'd be a fan of him even if I wasn't his daughter, but Dr. Michael Greger of nutritionfacts.org. He did a few videos on gluten and gluten sensitivity, and I was just like, yes, somebody gets it. So it's just learning about nutrition, and then also understanding that sometimes your body can take a little while to adapt to eating healthier foods, and sometimes in the case of, let's say, soy, some people just don't handle it well. But there's an overall bell curve of what works for most people, and let's say edamame is a food that most people can handle in their diets, as long as the diet itself has a lot of variety. And that's an important point too, is not eating too much of just one food. I know the banana diet is huge, and I don't recommend it. I think that it's unhealthy to eat so many bananas and avoid other nutritious fruits like berries, and even cooked foods like cooked tomatoes and beans generally are eaten cooked, and those are so nutritious. So it's important also to understand true science and have a good idea that this is a long-term lifestyle thing that you want to continue for the rest of your life, and hopefully you'll live to 100 or beyond and continue eating the same way your entire life, and not to give in to fads. This is everyday weight maintenance and everyday lifestyle that I am so excited to share with people, that if I can do it, you can do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you pair your personal experiences and your upbringing with all of your research from your education and from your father and other people. So that's really wonderful that you're bringing that to the table, and I think that that's why your book is going to impact so many lives. I love that you also made that point about legumes and certain foods that some people have trouble eating. And I'll admit, for me personally, it's been a huge struggle. Like, I really want to eat legumes, and I've been trying to figure it out, and I've done everything like, the soaking and the kombu and the digestive enzymes, and it's been incredibly frustrating. But I will say that it's certain foods, like you said, maybe you're just eating too much of them. And I've actually noticed this with gluten too. I can eat small amounts of gluten every once in a while, but I think what was happening for me before was I was eating way too much of it, and I was probably eating too much processed gluten. I found that sprouted glutens, like sprouted breads and grains, I can handle a lot better. So that is a phenomenal point too. I think some people look at it as, I can't eat this, and we're already making that decision, right, when we choose not to eat animal products. So when you start saying, well, now not only am I not eating the animal products, but I'm not eating this, 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 and this, and as you mentioned earlier, that can borderline orthorexia and all of these like issues and that stress. And who knows, people might be gaining weight or holding on to weight simply because they're so stressed out. So it's kind of like that full balance of really like taking it day by day, trying things, seeing what works, tuning in, and not kind of like making too many general assumptions. I think the more that you can study people like your father plus Dr. Greger is a phenomenal resource. Make it that daily practice of learning a little bit more every day, trying things, experimenting, not trying to figure it all out in your first week of being vegan or trying to lose weight or trying to get healthier, but know that, you know, for me, it's been an 11-year journey, and I don't feel frustrated by that. I love that. I love learning new things about my body every single day, and I try not to be stuck to one way of living or eating.
I love that just in general with our lives, we have this, the beautiful thing is to continue growing and learning. Every day that we wake up is a new day. So if we indulge too much the day before, we have a new day to eat better. We have a new day to improve and not let setbacks frustrate us. Something that I loved writing about in the book, the positive psychology chapters were actually my favorite chapters to write about. Obviously I have a huge passion for nutrition, but my passion for just overall health and wellness and what goes on up here is a stronger passion, actually. And this is linked to it, is just understanding that we don't have to use labels. We can just say, this is my life. This is what I'm going to do today to make today a better day. Often that means not saying that I am totally gluten-free, but I'm just not going to eat as many whole grain breads just because I know that you know, eating more greens or plants is a better, more nutrient-rich option. Or eating a sweet potato versus a squash versus, like, change it up and have fun with it. Have fun with cooking. Let's make this as stress-free and fun, enjoyable as possible, and not get mad at ourselves if we make a mistake. I think that mental wellness and physical wellness are linked like a bird to a feather, and we have to acknowledge that everybody's different. Don't compare yourself to another person. That comes from with health and what we eat, and also our everyday lives. Like, let's say that your friend can't handle eating gluten. Well, that doesn't mean that you're not going to, you know, be able to handle eating gluten. Start with yourself, and in all areas of your life, focus on your own wellness and paying more attention to your body.
Absolutely. Great, great point. And that's another thing I love about your book is not enough people kind of focus in on the emotional side of eating and the emotional side of living. And again, I think that stress alone is a huge epidemic in our lives, and people don't realize how much that affects their overall health and their issues with weight here. All right, let's we have 4 more categories to cover here. So one is about being a new vegan, and I think that we've talked about this a lot, so we can probably go through this one pretty quickly, but I still wanted to address it. This one came from Alana, who said that she's finally ready to commit full-time to the vegan diet, but she's a little scared. She was vegetarian for almost 3 years and ended up gaining weight because she thought that as long as she wasn't eating meat, she was eating healthy. So, of course, we've already covered this, right? Just because you're eating vegan doesn't mean that you're eating healthy. So, what are some quick tips that you can give to Alana and people out there like her who are brand new to the vegan lifestyle and they want to start off eating super healthy? Should they eat low in soy, oil, sugar, salt? What are kind of like if you could summarize it into a sentence or two, what would be your best advice for new vegans who want to start in a healthy place?
Stay away from the processed food aisles. Say no to the frozen food section. Those ice creams, cakes, cookies. I would say stay as far away as possible and gravitate more towards the produce aisle and whole foods. That doesn't mean you have to give up sweets. Foods like dates and dried figs, those things are so good, but it's read up as much as you can. Find the passion within yourself, knowing that learning about nutrition is a gift. It's a priceless gift to yourself that at the end of the day you will find and love your body. You can still eat delicious, delicious meals and get comfortable in your kitchen, enjoy cooking, making this fun. And so don't be scared, get excited, get empowered.
Yes, love that. And this is something I talk about a lot in my upcoming ebook about healthy, organic vegan on a budget. And I've found that it's a long book that I'm writing, but I honestly could summarize it all in that same way, Talia. It's like, if you just focus on your whole foods and eat more produce and bulk grains, and you don't go to the processed food section, not only will you eat healthier, but you'll also save a ton of money. You know, the cost of packaged foods and the cost of anything prepared, like from the deli or something, you know, not only do we not know exactly how it was made and where it came from and how much oil and whatever else they put into it, but we also are overspending. So when you start making your own food, even super simple meals, as I've covered a lot in my current series about the same topic, you can have phenomenal dishes, even like French toast, for example. I can't remember if your dad had one of the recipes, but it was a bunch from like T. Colin Campbell and John McDougall. A few years ago, I made a video about healthy French toast, and it was just like getting whole grain bread. And you can make French toast from like a great non-dairy milk and bananas, cinnamon, and you know, a little bit of organic maple syrup, and have this phenomenal breakfast that just took a few ingredients that were inexpensive and still feel really satisfied, right? So there's no reason that you have to miss out on the foods that might be processed. If you make them at home, they're going to be less expensive, healthier, and may even taste better. So.
Yeah. Many people they're afraid of the amount of time that it's going to require to cook in their kitchen. We all live insanely busy lives, and often, like, we're so tired at the end of the day, they're like, I just do not feel like cooking right now. Well, that doesn't have to be an issue either, because maybe you can cook a little bit on Sundays. You can cook a huge pot of soup on a Sunday afternoon. It won't take that long. It can be absolutely delicious. Put some in your fridge, some in your freezer, and then you have food for the entire week.
Yes.
Do that. Cook a few times a week with these low-cost ingredients, and you only have to cook like once a week. That's not that much.
Or it could be once a month. I mean, if you plan ahead, you can make frozen veggie burger patties and lasagnas and pizzas. All of these can be made from whole ingredients and put them in the freezer, and you've got food for however long. And this has like been a huge topic on my channel recently. I have the series leading up to my ebook, and that's what I bring up so much. And actually, one of the chapters that I'm finessing right now is about the excuses people make about making their own food. And a huge part of that is the time. But the thing that we fail to realize is that it takes time to go to the grocery store and get packaged foods. Just as long, it takes the same amount of time. If you're at the grocery store, just choose the whole foods instead of the packaged foods. It takes time to drive to the drive-in and go to the restaurant and wait for your meal and order. It takes fuel if you're constantly eating out all of the time and having to drive for every meal. We forget, how much time we're spending on these unhealthy options. Not to mention, if you're hanging out watching TV for half an hour, you could spend that half an hour in the kitchen. You could even watch TV while you're making food if that's what you really want to do. There are so many ways to find time and energy. We just have to kind of train ourselves. And I'm hugely passionate about that, and I'm so glad that you brought that up.
Absolutely, Whitney. And I'd also like to say that going to the doctor with a health problem also takes time.
Exactly. And money.
Later in life also takes time. And something that I love to do while I'm cooking is maybe I'll watch a movie or listen to a favorite podcast while I'm Or even like if I'm in the mood to just listen to upbeat music, I'll do
Yep.
that while I'm cooking. The end of the day, what's our goal? We want to be as happy and satisfied with our lives as possible. Adding more fun can also be done in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Watch your favorite movie while you're making your favorite brownies.
Yeah, or hang out with your friends. I mean, it's just kind of like reframing the idea of it. And so many meals can be made in 5 minutes, 10, 15. Like it's we're not talking a ton of time. And yeah, I talk a lot about that in the book, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. All right, so 3 more sections, and then we're going to jump into live questions. But we definitely want to cover these. So emotional eating, we talked about emotions. Kathy asked or said that she's been vegetarian and vegan at various points in her life, but when things start to get stressful and unmanageable, her diet becomes less of a priority. A lot of people can relate to this. She eventually finds herself eating things that make her feel miserable, both physically and emotionally, and it's hard to get back on track. She found that when she started eating animal products, she gained weight, and so she really wants to know if we have advice for how to stick to a nutritious plant-based diet even when things get rough in other areas of our lives, and how to avoid foods that are kind of addicting.
That's a great question. I would say starting with handling stress in a non-food avenue. Going to the gym or going on a run, going on a hike, swimming, playing with your kids. Let's find a healthy way to relieve that stress. It could be yoga, meditation. There's so many avenues to figure out a solution. Every problem, I believe, has a solution that can also be turned into a healthy solution. This is a part of self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Self-love means taking a step back. Even if you open your refrigerator door and say to yourself, I'm opening the fridge right now. I'm not hungry. I'm like slam it shut. Talk to yourself if you need to. Fear, a part of being your own best friend, is acknowledging your own thoughts and feelings in the present moment. And in that present moment of overeating, say to yourself, I'm better than this. Put the fork down, kill the food, kill the treat with, if it's sweet, put some salt on it. Do whatever you need to do and say, I'm going to the gym tomorrow. I'm going to the gym right now. Like it's a part of understanding that you deserve better.
Yes. And that, that takes some time to build that habit. But if you kind of see the cause and effect of eating certain foods and you're gaining weight or you don't feel good after them, you just have to try to remember that. And maybe in that moment, write out a list. That's a really great practice, right? I remember what it felt like when I was kind of out of control with my eating, and this led to a bit of an eating disorder when I was in high school and college. I felt very out of control. What I wish I would have done was in those moments, I could have written down how I was feeling so I wouldn't forget, and what I could do in the future to avoid it, right? So next time you get tempted, before you even give into that addictive food, you can look back at that list and say, oh yes, this is how I'm going to feel. Doesn't feel good. And here are the things I could do right now. So it's kind of like writing a letter to your future self and saying, okay, this is what to do. It's like an emergency kit or something. And I also feel like finding healthier alternatives to things and that transition process. Of course, if you're brand new to eating healthy and brand new to vegan, it might be challenging for you to like immediately stop eating French fries or something, right? So my whole thing is, okay, make your own French fries and try to make them without oil. You can just roast sweet potatoes or potatoes in the oven and with a little bit of salt or garlic powder or something. They taste delicious. Or maybe it's just switching out the oil or switching to organic or whatever it takes for you to make those steps. And then as Talia said earlier, you kind of get to a point where you don't even miss it. I used to eat French fries like almost every single day when I went vegan. I thought, this is vegan, they're just potatoes, there's no big deal, I can eat these all the time. I was like addicted to them. And nowadays I find myself saying, wow, like I'll see French fries on the menu and have no desire to get them. And it was kind of that process of slowly weaning them out and finding other foods that were more satisfying, and again tuning into my body to the point where I didn't even feel tempted because I knew kind of how they didn't do much for me. Or maybe choosing mashed potato or baked potato instead, right? Baked potato is a really healthy option. You still get that starch and that satisfying warm feeling from the potato, but without all the oil and salt that might be on it.
That's
So I
absolutely
think it's just, to me, that's like a mental emergency kit. It's like, okay, what do I do when I have this feeling? You're prepared, so you know exactly what you can do instead to make yourself feel better than you would if you chose the opposite, right?
absolutely. And I think something that helps overcoming emotional eating is getting rid of feelings of guilt and fostering feelings of empathy for your own self and realizing that we are more alike than we're different. And most of us have problems with how we feel about our bodies, overeating, emotionally eating. You are not alone. If you're going through some sort of eating disorder, you are not alone. We're all immortal and we all have these ups and downs of life. And so the more compassion you can show to yourself and treating yourself like you would want to treat somebody who loves you is vital to reaching your optimal health potential. If you need to call up somebody who loves you, a close friend or a family member or boyfriend, call them up. They will help you feel better. So knowing what you need to feel better and to take care of your mental and physical health also sometimes means understanding that you have a support system to help you as well.
Absolutely. And, having an online community, I always encourage people to join kind of online social media accounts that they really, appreciate and connect with people online, because it could be as simple as you just scrolling through Twitter or Instagram and seeing some inspiring photos or reading somebody else's story and knowing that you're not alone there can be really helpful. And also having books like yours, Talia. I mean, that when I was reading your book, I really wish I had that when I was a teenager, because it really felt like we were having a conversation together, and that it was just very comforting, like you knew what I was going through. And so books like yours can be a phenomenal resource to turn to when you're not feeling your best, right? Or you feel kind of weak. It's like, if you don't have a great friend to turn to, you can turn to that. And that's just wonderful that you have that as a resource.
Thanks, Whitney. I honestly would like to admit that while I was editing the book and rewriting it, I would often read it when I was not having a very good day, and I would automatically feel better. So reading my own book, Love Your Body, makes me feel better too.
That's awesome.
I can't wait for it to help as many women as possible. And there's so much nutritional science in there, and even information about the relationship between factory farming and climate change, and how being more compassionate to the world at large is related to overall well-being.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. All right, 2 more topics till we get to your questions live. Remember, you can ask them at google.com/+ecovegangal. Click on the link and ask in the Q&A app. If you ask on YouTube, I will not be able to see your questions. So if you already put it there, go on over to Google+, and you can do this on your computer or on your mobile device. So the last 2 questions I want to cover, one came from Julie, and I like to ask as many people this question as possible because it's such a hot topic, especially on YouTube and in the vegan world. I'm always curious what people think about it, and that's the 80-10-10 diet. This can also encompass the raw till 4, which has kind of been an offshoot of 80-10-10, people that are eating low-fat raw vegan until 4 o'clock, and then I think then they eat low-fat cooked vegan, if I understand it properly. So Julie asked, would you recommend the 80-10-10 low-fat raw diet for weight loss and energy? I'm wondering if I should try cutting back on carbs or fat. So much different information out there. Right. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. So a low-fat vegan diet is not nutritious. Because, as I mentioned earlier, is that our brains require a healthy amount of fat to function optimally. And as I mentioned in Love Your Body, a fat deficiency is often why a lot of people have to give up vegan diets to begin with, because they start feeling weak. They're like, I'm missing something here. My body doesn't feel right. And often the reason is that they're not eating enough fat. And there's It's not good when we're not eating foods like walnuts with healthy omega-3 fatty acids, flax seeds and chia seeds, avocados. Those are all so good for us. What's just important to consider is how much we're consuming, because we all know that fat contains 9 calories or per gram, then they're just more, it's more calorically dense than carbohydrates, and so it's just a matter of keeping in mind how much we're eating. Even just a few tablespoons of nuts or seeds each day, or making a fatty dressing, is all you need. It's just making sure that we're eating an overall nutritious diet, and also not applying rules as well. I think it's restrictive, to say you can't eat cooked foods for lunch if you really want to eat a stew for lunch is not really ideal. Is long for the rest of our lives. And also, we don't need to reach our ideal health. I'm not about rules. I'm in general.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of that I agree with. I think that for me, the 80-10-10 diet feels really appealing because it focuses so much on getting nutrients from your food and focusing on the whole foods, which I really appreciate about that diet. The ratio side of it, I think, is where a lot of people start to have red flags come up, and like you said, restrictive or not getting enough of something. So maybe the ratios are a little off there. I think that a raw foods diet can be really effective, and it's interesting because the low fat side of it, maybe it's just going too far to the extreme, because the typical classic raw food diet tends to have so much fat in it. I think it's been estimated like 60 or more % of the classic raw foods diet contains a lot of fat. And so 80-10-10 seemed to be like going the opposite way, where it wasn't enough. So if you want to eat raw foods, or mainly raw foods, right, I personally think that's wonderful because you're focusing on all these nutrient-rich foods. Maybe the balance of fat just needs to be a little bit higher than 80-10-10 gives. But I also know that Juliana Hever, who I've had on a few times, she's a plant-based dietitian, she said that there are certain foods that are best assimilated when they're cooked. And you mentioned tomatoes. She's also mentioned things like legumes, which you technically could have sprouted. So what is your feeling about having a mostly raw diet with some cooked foods, which seems to be something that people from 80-10-10 are moving towards, that raw till 4 type of lifestyle?
That's a great point, and I just want to congratulate everybody who is eating a nutrient-dense diet, who wants to eat healthier, who is conscious of becoming their best selves. I want to congratulate all of those raw food people, because that is not easy. So let's start out with that, and that is so much healthier and more disciplined than 99% of Americans.
Yeah.
So let's start and say, go raw, people, but also keep in mind that there's just I'm not all raw, because the science is not all raw. And the science says that you can eat a cooked sweet potato and you can put some walnuts on it, drizzle it with, like, I don't know, some one of my favorite dishes growing up was a sweet potato dish that we mashed and we put in with some dried fruit, and eating that for dessert or something, or with lunch, is so good for us. So keeping in mind that we don't have to eat an all raw or mostly raw diet to reach ideal health, to live to 100, to not end up with a later life disease, and to also find our ideal weight. So, again, we're missing out on some of these super nutrient-dense foods that sometimes are better for us when we cook them. And we don't have to cook them to the extreme. We can create a stew or a soup is a wonderful way to prepare vegetables and other fruits or whatever you want to create. It retains all of the nutrients, and you don't overcook it. So steaming soups and stews are the best way to do it, and Juliana was absolutely right. Foods like corn and tomatoes, there's a few foods that are better for us when we cook them. And then there's other foods like broccoli, which are ever so slightly more nutrient dense when eaten raw, but when we cook them, their nutrient composition changes just a tad, and you can actually absorb a different combination of nutrients when you steam it lightly. So broccoli is just one of that vibrant green that you see when you steam broccoli. That's an indication right there that that's pretty darn healthy.
Right. Well, I think that the point is that it's kind of, again, coming back to balance, and that if you balance out the raw foods with the cooked foods, and that's why I think the raw till 4 diet is becoming so popular now, is people are saying, you mean I can eat cooked foods again? They're so excited about it, but they're still eating mainly raw for most of their day, right? I even think the 4 p.m. aspect of it might be restrictive because there are people like me who get up a lot later than the average person, so 4 o'clock to me is not quite as long of a day as it is for others. So for me, it's like what percentage of my day or my diet is going to be there, and not having something strict. And lastly, I think that a lot of people are drawn to 80-10-10 and the raw diet because of weight loss. But if you're missing out on certain things, like your body's going to become imbalanced, and you also might fall into that category of feeling too restricted, which can be a major danger zone. And so I guess for me, again, it still comes back to balance and tuning in and just noticing, and also finding a way to kind of combine different principles together. Like, I love that. If you like broccoli raw and you like it cooked, have both, right? Maybe one day you have raw broccoli, or one meal you have raw broccoli and one meal you have cooked broccoli. Like, you can have the best of both worlds. And I love that concept of, instead of like roasting broccoli with oil, just steam broccoli, which is so good. If any of you out there have never tried steamed broccoli, you're missing out. I don't know, sometimes we get it in our heads that steamed foods are not good, but broccoli steamed has so much flavor and such a great texture. It is insanely satisfying. So, you know, I think some people think two extremes. They think either raw with nothing on it, or it's got to be baked and roasted with lots of oil and salt and all this other stuff. So they see these two extremes and they go for whichever one they're most drawn to.
And even if somebody listening says just plain steamed broccoli is not something that appeals to me, I love Indian food. It's so spicy and it just has so much flavor. How can I enjoy just plain raw, plain steamed broccoli? You don't have to do that if you don't want to either. Yeah. I love making a spicy stew, and that can even be better because then I'll throw in like a tahini sauce, or I'll throw in like lots of Italian spices or Indian spices. I can make any dish that normally is cooked with oil-free, and I'll cook it one day a week. It'll last forever. So keeping in mind that broccoli to me is just as delicious as you say, Whitney, both raw and steamed. But I don't want to scare people and say that, well, you can't make a delicious Indian dish or something like that. Just throw in the broccoli too. Throw in some chickpeas and beans and bok choy and kale, and make it and sun-dried tomatoes. Make it kick-ass delicious.
Yes. And plus, you know, sauces can be great too. Sometimes I'll steam broccoli or anything else, sweet potatoes I like to steam, or kale, and I'll just put a great dressing. One of my favorite go-to dressings is just tahini, which is, you know, sesame seeds with just water and a little, maybe sometimes a little bit of garlic, and sometimes just, and ginger. Usually I'll just do tahini, ginger, and water blended up, and it's so delicious on that. You can make miso dressings, all sorts of phenomenal things without oil or even without salt, and put it on top of those things, and it just creates this incredible meal. You can do it with grains, quinoa, whatever, and suddenly you have this nutritious filling meal that barely took any time and is nutrient dense and inexpensive. And to me, that's like the best of all worlds. All right, let's go to one last question, and then we're going to jump to the live questions. So get ready, to anyone watching live. You can ask your questions at any point, so you can ask them now, and we'll get to them. At google.com/+ecovegangal, just click right on the event link and look for the Q&A app. And the last question here is about being healthy at any size, which I love this. Somebody asked, and I didn't get their name, but this is a little bit of a while ago, asked what my thoughts were on the idea that people can be healthy at any size. There are plenty of overweight people who lead perfectly healthy lives, and I want to know your stance as a healthy living advocate and not as a vegan advocate. So I guess they're just curious, can people still be healthy while being overweight? I think maybe the word overweight might be the wrong term here. Maybe it's bigger size, right? I think people often think of this kind of standard for body shapes And so if you're a little bit rounder and your body comes out a little bit farther than others, we associate that with being overweight. But Talia, I would love to hear, can people be kind of rounder and more voluptuous and bigger in size without being unhealthy, and perhaps even not being overweight in terms of their body, if that makes sense?
Totally. So understanding that those fat cells are not just, they don't just sit there. They actually have hormones circulating throughout all of our bodies, and those fat cells are alive. And the more fat that we have just hanging on our bodies, the more we weigh. It's just been shown in research to increase the likelihood of developing a disease later on. The more estrogen we have circulating, the greater odds we're going to have breast cancer. I'm never an advocate of scaring anybody. Of course not. But the point is that this is what's so fantastic about a plant-based diet, is that you can eat a ton of food, but if you're not used to eating this way, you're more likely than not going to drop some weight and still feel satiated. The truth is that there's a spectrum, and something I talk about in the beginning of Love Your Body is that the government says a BMI between 18 and 25 is in the normal range, and what's been shown to actually be associated with complete reduced risk of disease is to have a BMI between 18 and 23, and it's the dangerous.
It's a body mass index.
Body mass index, that's right. And so the fat that's located around our midsection, the extra pounds that we have there, is not ideal for being as healthy as we are capable of becoming.
Right. So with that said, does that mean that people that have larger amounts of body mass around their midsection, and no matter what they seem to do, it's not coming off? And I notice this. I mean, you see people of all different sizes in the vegan lifestyle, for example, and we kind of make these snap judgments. Oh, they must be eating too much junk food and processed food. But there's definitely people I come across that are eating incredibly healthy but still holding on to a lot of weight. And I think that that's a very interesting question there is, one, why aren't they losing weight if they're eating so healthy? And two, can they still be healthy at that size?
Yes. And as you had mentioned, it's so important not to make judgments about other people and assume that they're eating too much vegan junk food or just junk food. Okay, yeah, we don't know what that person's life is like. We don't know what they're doing or what they're eating. We obviously can tell that they're not, they're not eating ideally if they're overweight, but let's not judge. So let's start with also acknowledging the fact that if this is you and you're trying to lose weight and you're not at your ideal weight, there's got to be a cause. So maybe you're overeating. Maybe you are eating too many dried fruits or dates, or at the end of the evening, maybe you're snacking too much throughout the day. You're not in tune with your actual true hunger and what your body's caloric requirements are. So starting out with a nutrient-dense plant-based diet is the way to go, and then you'll become more in tune with your body's caloric requirements and what true hunger feels like. My dad talks about this, and I talk about this in Love Your Body too. It's just transitioning to a healthier diet in general, and then starting from there, and then learning as you go.
Yeah. And I think that it's important, too, that some people, we all kind of, you talk about metabolism actually in your book, too, which is always such an interesting topic. I think that what's fascinating, and I've witnessed this firsthand, is my sister and I have completely different body shapes. She has always had just that typical ideal woman shape of and I should say ideal in quotes, but like the media ideal, right, of just barely having any fat on her body. And I've always been a little bit more on the voluptuous side, I guess. Maybe voluptuous isn't quite curvy, I should say. I'm a lot curvier than my sister. And it's always fascinating me because I eat a lot cleaner than she does. And she exercises probably a little bit more than I do. But it's fascinating that biologically we're so similar and yet our bodies are very different. I think a lot of people think about this, like, wow, I'm eating so well, I'm exercising, I'm doing everything that I can, and I'm not that model shape, or I'm not that stereotypical beauty shape. And the question comes down to, why is that the case, and does it even really matter? You know, if we feel good on a daily basis and we're doing everything that we can based on our knowledge, the size of somebody doesn't entirely determine how healthy they are, right? I mean, there's certainly models that are incredibly unhealthy because they're not eating enough calories or something, or maybe they're, you know, taking diet pills or doing the extreme things. We just don't know based on looking at them.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so true. I have two younger sisters, and our body types are not alike at all. So I share that in common with you. And I think you look beautiful, Whitney. And you know, we have to start loving our own unique bodies and the cards that we were dealt when we were born. Uh, but making taking advantage of our genes, and then making sure that we're living as healthily as possible, exercising and eating the right diet, so that way we reach our ideal body weight and the most beautiful body, just because we are treating our body kindly and with the desire to become our best selves and the healthiest version. And so part of that is mentally not comparing yourself to your sister,
Yeah.
which is so hard because we all do it. But can you talk to yourself and say, you're your own worst critic? Like, what if somebody is like thinking, I have a really, you know, beautiful body? It's often that we knock ourselves, we're the ones to knock ourselves the most, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and when it comes to your question, is that yes, and one thing I touch upon in Love Your Body is that having a slower metabolism. This is going to be a surprise for most people, because most of us are envious of the people who can keep eating and eating and eating, the ones with the fast metabolism. But it's actually when you have a slow metabolism and you require fewer calories, that is actually associated with a longer life. And it's something that I don't want to discuss in detail here because we won't have enough time. It's just fascinating science. I don't want to discourage people who do have fast metabolisms or think they do, because we can all live very long, vibrant, disease-free lives, even if you have a slower fast metabolism. But I just want to debunk the science that those with fast metabolisms were given like this insanely awesome gift when they were born.
Yeah. No, I love that topic, and it's definitely worth reading your book to see that point as well. I think that the last thing I'd want to say here, though, is as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is your food and exercise is not the only thing that contributes to your size, your shape. It's genetics, it's stress, it's how much you sleep, it's environmental factors can contribute that. I mean, there's so much that goes into how we look and how we feel that we can't just there isn't just like a quick, fast solution. It's not like stop eating oil and you'll lose all the weight. It's not that count your calories or exercise X amount of times. It's so many different factors, and I have had to learn my entire life to just, again, take it day by day and try to find different ways to support myself for living as healthy as possible and not looking for some quick solution. And as going back to the questions in the beginning, a lot of people feel frustrated that they're not making progress, but you know, it's a daily maintenance, and it's yeah, you can lose weight fast from some methods, but there's just so much going on in our lives and our environment that contributed to it. So I think that not judging yourself and not judging other people and doing the best you can and learning as much as possible is the best recipe for success.
Yes, let's start being kinder to ourselves and kinder to other people, and acknowledging that health doesn't just mean what we eat. It doesn't just mean exercise. It also means being as kind as possible and compassionate as possible. And especially in the social media era, let's stop being negative. You talk about this a lot, Whitney. Let's stop knocking other people who we don't know personally and don't know what their lives are actually like. Some person might think that I was, you know, born to Dr. Joel Fuhrman and was born privileged and haven't gone through some of my own problems, or, you know, crying or whatever. That person doesn't know me. Let's start by tackling our own wellness and being as compassionate, understanding, and putting as much positive vibes into the world as possible. So that's something, a message that I want to share with as many people as possible.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you for that. Okay, let's jump into the questions. So we've got a few here, and again, a reminder to everyone else, you can start asking now, and again at google.com/+ecovegangal, click on the event, and then click on to watch. Once you're actually watching this within Google Plus, not YouTube, there's a little Q&A section on the side where you can type in your questions. So I have a couple from Karina, and I think one of these was answered, so let me scan this real quick. Oh, I love this question, actually. So Karina, I believe she's saying she lives in Japan. I love it when people watch internationally. I think that's so cool. She's found that there isn't much fruit, grains, non-dairy alternatives. She wants to maintain a plant-based diet but needs more variety. Which food should I buy online, not the frozen cold foods, make at home, or leave out of my diet? So I am a huge advocate for looking for foods online because you can often get great deals, so you can save a lot of money, especially if you buy things in bulk, bigger portions like nuts and seeds, grains, like anything that you can buy in bulk at a store, you can buy online. So these are mainly the dry goods. A lot of people want to navigate towards the frozen or the packaged foods, like the alternative, the meat and dairy alternatives and all that. And again, as we've talked about, avoiding those and having those mainly as the occasional treat, but focusing on what you can make yourself. I would personally say look online for any organic grains like brown rice and millet, get your quinoa, your legumes, and all the different types of legumes that you can make at home. And the nuts and the seeds, you can get great prices in pretty much any part of the world. You do want to look for the closest location to you because that's where you'll save on shipping costs, and also it won't take as much of a toll on the environment if it doesn't have to travel far. But in terms of leaving foods out of your diet, I mean, I think that we've covered that a lot here, just focusing on the whole foods. If you're finding that you are having trouble finding fruit, you can definitely find places online that sell fruit. I still think trying to grow it yourself, finding a local farmer, whether it's a market or a CSA that you can join, and then you can definitely get dried fruits online or canned fruits, but dried fruits tend to be more caloric dense, and canned foods might be canned with sugars or preservatives, and they might be lined with BPA. So you have to do a little bit of research to figure out what's best for you. What's your opinion on this, Talia?
You hit the nail on the head, Whitney, and I'm a huge fan of iherb.com, IHERB.com. I found that they have the best prices, but it's for everything but the fresh fruits and vegetables we can pretty much find online. And sometimes we even can search online for where a farmer's market or a new grocery store, health food store is that we didn't know existed. Sometimes it's just Google can be your best friend to do research of any sort, to even locate where you can take your bike or go for a walk or drive to buy the fresh food that you're seeking.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a little bit trickier in other countries. I wish I knew. Maybe other people that are watching can chime in on YouTube once this has been recorded, if you're living in Japan and you have good resources for all of that. But I mean, even in America, we have ethnic markets, as we call them, like Asian markets. They tend to have a lot of great produce. I sometimes feel a little bit hesitant because I search for organic produce, but if you can't find organic, you can always just really carefully wash something. I had a whole video about this. You can use produce washes and vitamin C crystals or vinegar even to wash your produce. I think that you'll probably be able to find produce anywhere because most humans want and thrive on fresh produce. So if it's not organic, just clean it well, look for the best sources, and if you can find a local farmer to buy from or a store that's supplies from local farmers, that's great. All right, next question comes from Tess. Tess considers herself a vegan, but occasionally cooks with the eggs that her family's chickens produce. Our chickens are seen as pets to us, and we treat them with love. In your opinion, is it okay for me to call myself a vegan, even though I do eat those eggs? This is great, Tess. I've been asked this before, and been meaning to cover this. From my opinion, I actually had a very similar situation growing up. My parents, where I am right now, they live on a farm. And it's not like your classic farm. It's mainly my mother and my sister are horse riders, and so we have all this land. So we had turkeys growing up that we never ate, but they were just companion animals. And we had chickens that were mainly companion animals, but we had eggs from them. I've never lugged eggs my entire life, and I haven't had eggs since I went vegan 11 years ago. But I also saw the way that these chickens were living. They were like the coolest form, or the truest form of free range that you can imagine. They had their own little shed, and they walked around all day and did whatever they wanted, and we would bring them in at night. And so they just lived this great life. There's no rules. They were never killed to be eaten, and they would just naturally lay eggs. And since my parents eat eggs, they would just take their eggs and eat them. To answer that part of the question, if you're going to eat eggs, that's probably the best situation you could possibly have, right? You know exactly where they're coming from and how these chickens are cared for. And from my personal experience, I know that they're, very loved and cherished. There are ideas, though, that technically you're taking something away from that animal, so who knows how they're feeling about it, if they're distressed, right? Even if it's not fertilized, they still have some sort of an attachment to the eggs. So if you're taking that from them, I guess emotionally you just don't know what the chickens are going through. But to answer your main question, can you call yourself a vegan if you're eating eggs? By the definition of veganism, I would say no, because veganism means not eating animal products. But I guess there's that ethical side of it. There are a lot of ethics involved with veganism, and a lot of people are vegan because of the way animals are treated, right? So it's tricky. What do you think about this, Talia? I mean, this is kind of like coming down to like the honey conversation, and even something that was discussed in my last Q&A, which was about horse riding. Ethically, we make decisions based as vegans, kind of this overall picture, but when it comes down to specific situations, it's a little bit different.
This is a philosophical and ethical question, and I would say that life itself is not always black and white, and we need to understand that, and that she's probably doing better than 99.9% of people on planet Earth. So if anyone wants to knock her and say that she's not 100% vegan, I don't think that's something that is respectful of her and her lifestyle. She's obviously not technically a true vegan, but I also think that she deserves a lot of respect, and that this is not a black and white answer or thing to. It's a tough question.
Right. Well, and I think it comes down to what you were saying earlier about labels too. I mean, I think that some people are hesitant to call themselves vegan because it has all this strictness. A perfect example actually came up, I think today or yesterday. I had mentioned this product that kills fruit flies. It's called Fly Punch, and it's like this little natural concoction that you can put together and put it on your counter to attract and kill fruit flies that come in from all your produce. And I've been kind of doing this on my own for years with vinegar. I make a little vinegar solution, and I only do this when fruit flies get out of hand. And I do the same thing with fleas, right? I have a dog, and so she'll attract the fleas in, and fleas can cause an infestation, so I have to find a way to manage and oftentimes kill fleas. And somebody messaged me about this yesterday, saying that they didn't feel that I was entirely vegan to do that. And I've actually been kind of thinking about this in my head. It's like, I definitely see why, all living creatures deserve a chance to live, and we should do our best to be respectful of them and careful with what we do, whether it's a spider or an ant or a fly or a flea or a chicken in this specific case, right? I guess it comes down to that, what you feel comfortable doing. If somebody doesn't want to consider me vegan because I occasionally get rid of fruit flies, like, I can understand that perspective. I still think that I'm vegan. And that's where it comes down to that black and white point too. And if you feel like it's too stressful to call yourself a vegan when you're occasionally killing another life, then maybe you just don't want to call yourself vegan anymore. But if that makes sense, right? Like, you take away that label, but you're still mainly living that lifestyle.
My computer is about to die, so if I leave you, can I go get my charger?
Of course you can, yeah. Yeah, I'll move on to the next question. You'll come right back. But I want to hear any closing thoughts from Talia and anybody else watching. I just don't think that there's a right or wrong answer. And sure, there are definitions, and it's trickier to test. You know, the definition of a vegan is typically around animal products, right? And that's why eggs are not considered it. But then we move into honey. Honey, I mean, bees, you know, they're maybe we don't. Some people don't consider themselves and consider them animals, and there's that fine line there. What is alive, right? And you get arguments from people saying like, well, why do we kill plants? They're alive, and there's like all these different things going on in our head. At the end of the day, there's no vegan police. You know, like we can joke about there being vegan police, and when you're online or around a lot of people, they'll make a lot of maybe judgments or comments on your lifestyle choices. But at the end of the day, like this is your life, and you do the best that you can based on the information that you have and the experiences that you've had, and I guess that you make your own decisions there, and if people judge you, they judge you. You know, I'm sure people find I know people find plenty of flaws in my way of life, and I guess my process is usually considering what they have to say and really taking it in before I make a decision. And I might decide that I agree with them, and I might decide that I disagree with them, and that's up to me. So for me, with the fruit fly thing, I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Maybe I don't want to kill fruit flies. Maybe I want to work on avoiding having fruit flies around in the first place, deterring them versus killing them. Do you have anything else to add to the topic of bugs and you know, definitions, or, you know, of course it started with chickens, but kind of like the defining points of vegan, right? How do you navigate that?
I would say we do the absolute best we can to preserve the life of everything, but it's not something that is always realistic. So understanding that there's going to be situations in which we have flies in our lives, or I'm not like cockroaches, like you know, things happen in life, and we have to recognize that sometimes it's not a black and white issue, and that sometimes it's just important not to label people and to understand that we all have different ways of seeing the world and of seeing the circle of life. And you know, I think the circle of life is just part of being born on planet Earth.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you for that question, Tess. And again, I encourage people to jump in these conversations on YouTube, but do it respectfully without judgment. Karina just followed up. She was the one that talked about the produce and buying online, and she says that she used iHerb a lot, which Talia recommended. They have a great range. She does have a local farmer's market, but she's on a very tiny island, and it's 3 hours by ferry. So getting a big range of produce is hard. I would say, Karina, if you can possibly grow it your own, and believe it or not, you can grow a lot, even on a windowsill. I talked about this in a few videos in my recent series, and it is addressed in my ebook as well. I think just seeing what you can, doing your research to find out how you can grow your own, try to grow as much as you can at home, and then when you have a chance, load up on the produce and freeze what you can, preserve what you can, and I think that you'll be able to find a way to stretch your produce as much as possible along with growing online or buying online. Okay, so the next question comes from Haley. I'd be interested to know what percentage of fat Talia would recommend. I think high carbs is the healthiest, but agree that there must be some fats. What would Talia's maximum amount of good fats be? And what factors may affect the amount of fat we need, if any? So is there kind of like, so with 80-10-10, they say 10% fat. Do you have a percentage that you recommend over that?
I would say sticking to below 30% of fat in our diets is a wise idea. There's always that spectrum. It depends on your physical activity levels. Obviously, athletes who are exercising and burning a humongous quantity of calories, they need extra fat just to, you know, be able to get the amount of calories that they need in their overall lives. So it's understanding that there's a huge difference in fat requirements for each individual. A guy's going to need a lot more than a girl. But I'd say for a female who is looking to maintain or lose weight and has a slower metabolism, we don't need to eat more than a few ounces, maybe an ounce is like a tablespoon or so of nuts and seeds per day. We're not talking a huge amount. Seeds are more nutrient dense than nuts. So I always prioritize eating ground flax seeds and chia seeds each day or every other day. And I grind them up in my Vitamix or coffee grinder, and I freeze the flax seeds and the chia seeds, and they last forever. I sprinkle them on top of smoothies and stews. I add them like crazy. So it doesn't take that much fat, and there is a range. I wouldn't eat more than 1 avocado a day. It doesn't take that much fat, but it's also understanding how much, if you want to lose weight, gain weight, whatnot, and understanding which healthy fatty foods are the most nutrient dense and incorporating them into our diet as much as we can.
I like that. I think that you kind of also feel it in a lot of ways, like you said, like an avocado. Eating more than 1 avocado can taste really good, but if you really like savor that 1 avocado, it's a lot. It's very, very filling and satisfying. And you can break that up in many different meals. You can have a little avocado in your morning smoothie. You can have some on your salad. You can have some within a meal, like let's say you make tacos or burritos or something. You can spread out that avocado throughout your day. And I mean, chia and flax are just like, you can put them in so much, like your smoothies and your oatmeal, and you can put it in all the different dishes. You barely taste them, but you get so many nutrients, and you get that fat content there. So I think that your point here, Talia, seems to be not overdoing it, getting like the whole food sources of fats as opposed to like the oil, which is processed, and just having enough to feel satisfied and knowing that you're getting some in your diet, but not feeling too restricted. So maybe somewhere between 10 to 30%.
Absolutely, not making them the main component of your meal, but sprinkling them on top or adding a slice of avocado to a sandwich or something.
Yeah. And, you know, with nuts, too, nuts are very high fat, and I think some people will go overboard with nuts, right? But, you know, you have a small portion of walnuts or almonds or cashews, and you can use them as a condiment on top, or, you know, a lot of people love using cashews to make sauces. People use nuts to make non-dairy milks, and I think that being mindful of how much you use that too is important, because as we talked about with like the raw food diet, you can go overboard. I mean, the classic raw food diet has like nuts and everything, and you know, you might love the taste and feel satisfied, but that's like, you know, so much fat content. So I think not making your dish revolve around fat is also a huge key there too.
Absolutely. You can be an overweight raw vegan just because you're eating so many nuts.
Yeah, and oils, right? I mean, I think just starting to notice where it's coming from, and I would also say when you're getting your fats, enjoy it. You know, I think that's the other thing with oil, is that oil is kind of like, people just think they need oil in everything. They think they need it in their salad dressing. They think they need it to roast vegetables. They think they need it to, you know, add flavor or anything, but it's kind of hidden. You're not really enjoying it, and I think that's the difference between something like oil in an avocado, or oil in an olive, or oil in the whole nut or seed, is that the nuts, you're getting everything within it. It's the whole food, and you can enjoy it. You can savor it. That fat is hitting you on multiple levels, not just as a condiment, right?
Love that, Whitney. It's a great point. You can enjoy those whole fats more.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's funny, like, when I first got introduced to the concept of low or no oil, I was thinking a lot, why not just eat olives? I mean, instead of olive oil, like, olives are so tasty. You could get delicious organic olives, like from my farmer's market. They have them, and I just have like 3 of them, and I'm just on top of the world, right? And to me, that's so much more satisfying than having a tablespoon of olive oil.
You get all those vitamins and minerals and fiber when you eat the whole olive. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's take one last question, and the last one comes from Jessica. Jessica says, I am gluten intolerant, however, I'm considering doing the gluten-free vegan, and I'm finding that it's going to be challenging. Do you have any ideas? I'm not entirely clear about the however part, Jessica. So it sounds like you are just your main question is that you're afraid that eating gluten-free and vegan is challenging. I can tell you from personal experience it's not. It's just a little bit of learning curve, right? I've been gluten-free, mostly gluten-free, like I mentioned earlier. I'm not a celiac. I just feel better with low or no gluten in my diet. And I've been doing this for 4 years, and I thrive. As I mentioned earlier, my body has really benefited from it. I feel so much better on many different levels. And I just eat everything else. I mean, I eat tons of different grains that are gluten-free, so brown rice and millet, quinoa technically being a seed, but used like a grain. That's so wonderful. And then there's all sorts of grains that I barely ever eat, like teff. I'm trying to get more into teff
I need to get
and amaranth and things like that.
on oatmeal. I think you can get gluten-free oats as long as they're not contaminated. I'm a huge fan of a good crumble, a berry crumble with an oat on top, an oat crisp on top. There's solutions. It's just you have to do a little bit of experimenting in your kitchen.
Yeah.
You can all conquer these issues. Just you do your homework and put a little effort in, and you'll be amazed at how much fun it can be.
Oh, yeah. And the last thing I would say, too, is we keep talking about coming back to the kitchen and making your own foods just to eat healthier and to save money here. I also feel like when I first went gluten-free, just like when I first went vegan, I ate a lot of processed foods. I would find the gluten-free crackers and the gluten-free breads and the gluten-free cakes, and there's a ton of vegan gluten-free processed packaged foods, but making them at home is just usually the less expensive and healthier option. So finding recipes is probably more worth your time and your money and your health than it is to try to find like gluten-free pizzas out there. Now, I'm not saying don't eat them at all, because I love a good gluten-free pizza every once in a while or a good gluten-free vegan sandwich, but that's like maybe once a month, not if even that. I much prefer to just make the whole foods at home, and I find that very satisfying and super easy. So I just want to say to anyone out there that, you know, even when you make these meals at home, and even if you're cutting certain foods out of your diet, there's so much abundance of fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, and legumes out there that can be combined in just endless ways that will satisfy you and make you feel great every day. And as kind of been the theme in this whole interview, we both, Talia and I, really believe in just kind of experimenting, doing your research, tuning in, and finding balance. And when all of that is set up in your life, you will feel satisfied in so many different ways.
It's very rewarding to continue learning and growing and take charge of your health. It's really a self-esteem booster too.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, we have spent a good chunk of time talking today, and Talia, this has been so wonderful. I think this topic is going to help so many people out there, and I can't wait to see people's comments and different perspectives in the comment section of YouTube. So please join in there. Thank you everyone for watching live, and enormous thank you to Talia. Talia, I don't think you've held up your book yet so people can see what book we've been talking about. I love that cover. You did such a phenomenal job with that. It is so eye-catching.
Thank you so much, Whitney. I have to thank Rodale Books and my team over there. They are absolutely amazing at what they do, and it was a very humbling experience to work with them.
I bet. And congratulations, because I've been working on my ebook for months, and I have a whole new respect for book authors because it's so much work. And for you to put together, I mean, your book is dense, and I read it cover to cover. I just learned so much. I probably will need to read it probably 2 or 3 more times to really absorb everything. There's so much in there, but it's really captivating. You do a great job of sharing personal experiences and research and science and recipes. She's got a ton of great recipes in there. It's really, really loaded up, and of course I will link to it down below for all of you to check out. I really recommend this. Even if you're not trying to lose or gain or maintain your weight, if that's something you already feel pretty solid about, this book is just about loving yourself and feeling emotionally balanced, physically balanced, nutritionally balanced, and just finding that joy and comfort with yourself overall. And I love that it really speaks to a female audience, but a young female audience, I should say, but I think it's something for everyone too.
Thank you for saying that, Whitney. It's a product of passion. I couldn't do it if I didn't absolutely love it with all my heart. You're good at what you love and what you're passionate about.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Talia. I can't thank you enough. And this was just so, we finally got to cover so many topics that I've wanted to do for years. And you brought so much great advice and experience to the table. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Whitney. It's a real honor to do this with you.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm wrapping things up. Again, go to YouTube, join in the conversation, comment, be respectful and loving to people. I know everybody has so many different perspectives on diets and food choices and lifestyles, and it's absolutely fine to have different opinions, but I just always want to encourage people to be respectful and mindful and share your personal philosophy, but remember that some people just might not agree. And I notice that a lot of people try to say, well, you need to do this and you should do this. I think at the end of the day, it's about what we want to do and what we know to do, right? So I encourage everyone to just be mindful of that and very careful with what you say, and know that we're all on a journey, and it's about progress, not perfection, and learning and experiencing life. And
we all want to help each other.
Yes, exactly. The giving support versus trying to be right about something is such an important thing, and unfortunately not something I see enough on YouTube. So for those of you doing that already, thank you so much. And to anyone who hasn't commented because they're afraid or doesn't think they have anything to say, I want you to always feel safe and building that community. And going back to what you said earlier, Talia, about having a support system, I think YouTube and other forms of social media are just phenomenal, and you guys can build incredible bonds and help each other. So thinking of your comments as creating that support system and that community is one of the best things that you can do. You never know how you're going to inspire somebody through your words. So please join in there. Please join in social media. I'll leave links to Talia's website where you can find her online and connect with her. Do you have a newsletter, Talia?
I'm working on developing a newsletter. I'm very active on my Facebook page, facebook.com, Love Your Body 101, and Instagram as well. Newsletters to come very, very soon.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. It's such a great way to stay in touch and for people to get information. I have one, and you can sign up for that at ecovegangal.com. I would love to see you there and on social media. So reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next weekend for another live Q&A. Information on that will be shared on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And until then, have a phenomenal weekend, and thank you for being here and watching today, whether live or recorded. Bye, Talia.
Bye, Whitney. Bye, everybody.